Hi, welcome to The Inner Way. I'm your host, Father David Smith. For the last few programs of The Inner Way, we have been reading from the great spiritual classic, Unseen Warfare. Today, we're going to actually look at chapter 11 of the book, or chapter 12, rather, of the book. Last week, we looked at chapter 11. I mentioned that chapter 12 is one of my favorites. I say that every week, I think. Maybe they're all my favorites, but one of my favorites because it talks about that struggle that happens in us between the two wills that we have, the will to do good and the will to do evil. The title of chapter 12 is On the Many Desires and Tendencies Existing in Man and on Their Struggle with One Another. So today we're going to talk about that part of it, which is really the problem part of it. And I think we may do another program next week on chapter 12 and look a little bit more at the solutions or the pieces of advice that Unseen Warfare offers us. So this is the way the chapter starts. Know that in this unseen warfare, two wills existing in us fight against one another. One belongs to the intelligent part of our soul and is therefore called the intelligent will, which is the higher. The other belongs to the sensory part and is therefore called the sensory will, which is the lower. The latter is more frequently called the dumb, casual, passionate will. The higher will is always desiring nothing but good. The lower, nothing but evil. So I'll stop there. St. Paul talks about this in his letter to the Romans in chapter 7, very famously talks about this kind of war that goes on inside us. I'm reading from Romans chapter 7, verse 21. I find then a law that evil is present with me, the one who wills to do good. For I delight in the law of God according to the inward man. But I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind, and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin, which is in my members. And he goes on, as you know, to say, "O wretched man that I am." You know, I experience this all the time in my own life. We all do. We all experience this desire to do good, and then the desire to do what we want to do what feels good. There is what we know God wants as good, and we know what how we feel good. So last night we had some friends come over to the house. Presbytera and I had some friends come over for dinner, and after dinner we had our dinner, and then we went into the living room. We had a cup of tea and sat and chatted, and we talked really until late at night. Late for me, because I'm an old man. 10 o'clock is late, and I think they left a little after 10. I went in, I thought I'm just going to sit for a little while and relax. I was going to watch a video on television, actually, and just relax for a little while before I went to bed. As I sat down, I remembered that, Presbytera made some bread pudding, and we didn't have dessert. Nobody really wanted dessert after dinner. And so as I sat there, I thought, I could have some of that bread pudding. But then there was another thought in my mind that said, no, you don't want to do that. That's not right. But then the other thought said, but it's awful good, and I think I would like that because it tastes so good. And then the other thought said, but you are trying to overcome, by the help of God, thoughtless eating, and this is thoughtless eating. But then the other voice goes off in my head and says, yeah, but it's bread pudding. And the two of them go back and forth and back and forth. I'm going to continue to read the first chapter of the first paragraph of chapter 12. The reckoning, each equally happens by itself, so that neither is a good desire in itself reckoned as good, nor an evil desire as evil. The reckoning depends on the inclination of our own free will. Therefore, when our will inclines toward a good desire, it is reckoned in our favor. But when we incline toward an evil desire, it is reckoned against us. So what unseen warfare is saying is according to my illustration, is bread pudding evil in itself? No. Is not eating bread pudding good or godly in itself? No. These things don't have essential evil or good qualities. But where do they become evil or good? It's in me. It's in the fact that I have decided to not be a person who is eating thoughtlessly. And I pray about that and I make it part of my spiritual life. And so as I'm sitting there on the couch looking at the TV, the warfare that's going on in my mind is not simply dietary. It is really spiritual. And giving in is evil. The bread pudding itself isn't evil, but the giving in is evil, and resisting it is good. These desires follow upon one another. When a good desire comes, an evil desire immediately opposes it. And when an evil desire comes, a good desire at once rises against it. Our will is free to follow the one and the other. And whatever desire our will inclines towards, it becomes victorious on this particular occasion. It is in this is an important sentence in unseen warfare. It is in this that all our unseen spiritual warfare consists. So, the warfare going on in my mind is a matter of a spiritual effort. Do I have the spiritual wherewithal that by defining eating of bread pudding at 10:30 at night to be wrong, do I have the spiritual wherewithal to resist that, to not do what I myself have defined as being contrary to God's will? And I believe it is God's will that I get my eating under control. And so it, as unseen warfare says, when the evil thought comes, the good thought follows it. So it was as if I'm just sitting there and I said, oh, I think I'll have some bread pudding. Oh, wait a minute. No, I shouldn't do that. And then another thought, but bread pudding is pretty good. And then another thought, but I've decided not to do things like I'm contemplating right now. And then the other thought, yeah, but can't hurt that much, and so on and so forth. And this is, I like the last line, it is in this that our spiritual warfare consists. Because really what we're talking about is consistency, is the fact that these struggles that happen in our lives have to be consistent. Because what happened was I sat there on the couch and I said to myself, no, I am not going to do that. I have decided not to, and I'm not going to. And I sat on the couch, and maybe 15, 20 minutes later, I got up and I had some bread pudding. I had a little bowl, wasn't very much. I had a fairly good day yesterday in terms of reasonable eating. As a matter of fact, this morning when I weighed myself, I had lost weight yesterday, but that doesn't matter. Weight loss isn't in itself good or bad, good or evil. It's a matter of saying, which of the thoughts am I going to give into? So there's the problem. Brothers and sisters, there's the problem. Next week, we're going to continue looking at chapter 12 because unseen warfare has for us some ideas, suggestions, things to keep in mind for us to overcome these problems. I hope that you'll join us, and until then, God bless you, and I'll see you in church.